What's going down, everybody, and welcome back to another Commander Ad Populum. Together, we are Commander for the people, by the people, for the people. My name is Ryan. This is episode 277. I think I've been saying the wrong episode numbers on the recording and then entering the right one onto wherever the show gets posted. I think it's 277 now. The number is going to be correct wherever you find the show. Big thank you to official sponsors, FusionGamingOnline.com, your source for all your gaming needs. And we're going to be talking about a couple gaming things, situations, kind of the social nature of Commander and what that means. I've got an email here from a good friend of the show, Martin, from like a year ago, and I was looking at a couple things in the inbox for show topics, and this one came up. And he referenced an old show that I'm going to lean back on a little bit. But we got to say thank you to the Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/cadpopcast. If you want to help support the show, if you want to help keep the show coming for everybody forever and have it be available, Patreon's a good place to go. One of the benefits, of course, a little bit of a discount when you commission a custom altered card from your good friend Ryan. One of the benefits is the Discord access where I do lurk a little bit and we talk about sports and hockey, homemade Zambonis. We talk about Magic, upcoming Magic Con Chicago. We talk about all little things, and I lurk in there and get some show topic ideas, of course. And another great benefit to becoming a patron for a couple bucks a month, you can listen to the show on Patreon ad-free. There's a couple little ads at the start of the show and at the end of the show. And if you're not into that at all, you can, of course, head on over to Patreon. Couple bucks a month goes a long way, and if you don't like ads, well, that's where you can get it ad-free. So if you want to reach out, if you want to talk to me, if you want to give me your thoughts on today's topic, like Martin did about a year ago, you can hit me up Twitter at CCO Podcast there. If you've got something longer formed like today's topic, cadpopcast@gmail.com, or of course in the Patreon Discord. So I've got this email here and it's about the guilt of winning, and it references the guilt of winning in EDH, episode 234 of Commander Ad Populum, where I talk a little bit about why you would maybe feel guilty or when people do feel guilty. And I want to a little bit revisit that topic based on Martin's email, where he talks about one way that he feels guilty that he doesn't think I covered quite enough. And he gave me a big long explanation, and I'll a little bit get into it. But essentially what it comes down to is he feels guilty if he's winning because he's detracting from his friend's experience. Now, he's got a friend who played a bunch of years ago, like 15 years ago, 60-4 formats, a little bit more competitive, Zendikar area. That's kind of the friend that we're looking at, who was out of the game for 10 or 12 years, comes back in, plays Commander now, because that's what all the friend groups, people play, and he is cutthroat. Now, I'm not sure if this guy's playing cEDH in a casual world or not. I know a little bit that can happen, or people kind of associate certain cards or certain strategies with the cEDH end of the format. I don't know if that's what's happening. How it's described in Martin's email is that this guy plays to win, and if he's not winning, he's not having as much fun. And how that kind of materializes itself physically and socially is when his things are being removed or when his strategy isn't going his way, he is a little bit salty or accuses other people of attacking him or whatever. And maybe that's true, right? Maybe if he is, and here's where it gets challenging to listen to a little bit, if he is the competitive player, in that what I mean is, if he's the player at the table that has the most competitive mindset, not the player that's playing a cEDH deck, not the player who's doing the cutthroat strategy, but the player who's in it to win it, is what I mean when I say competitive mindset. if he's that player, if this person is that player, then he ought to expect that people are going to do their best to stop him. And sometimes that materializes itself in the game by being focused or targeted at a higher frequency than the other 2 or 3 people in the game. Maybe that's what he's feeling. Sometimes that materializes in being attacked, being taken out first, being politicked against at a higher frequency than your opponents or game mates. And for that reason, he has his reputation to blame. And we've talked a little bit about reputation building, changing, reputation management on past episodes of Commander Ad Populum. I'm sure you can Google like Commander Ad Populum reputation, and you're going to hit on either a show title or something in the show notes where I talk about that. And I've talked about reputation management from a deck building and strategy standpoint and a color identity strategy or standpoint. I've talked about reputation building and management from kind of a social and player-driven standpoint. But today is just a little bit different because we obviously have an experienced player in this example where he knows how to play Magic and he knows how to win at Magic, and he's played competitively when he played Standard or Limited or pre-releases, whatever it was, a long time ago. And when you come back into the game, the experience that you expect to give, the vibe that you give and receive when you know what the game was 10 years ago, think of all of the memories and the intricacies of any one game of Commander from 10 years ago. It's not something that you just have a whole ton of. Of course, you have like the very memorable plays, the very meaningful plays and games and stuff, but from 10 years ago, generally you probably just think, oh yeah, this is kind of how it was back then, and the competitive scene was different, or people didn't call it cedh, they just called it powerful decks. Like, when you go that far back in time, you only have kind of an umbrella or a catch-all term for how anything was. So when you come back in after a big long hiatus and you have this catch-all kind of term, feeling, mindset for how things were, I think that's what you're going to kind of tend to lean back onto when you start to play. Now, in the last 10 years, Commander in particular has evolved a ton. The game is different. The decks are different. The strategy is different. The cards that go into those decks are different. Everything is different. The game has evolved, and it's just different than it used to be. There's nothing for it. We're not going to talk about whether that's good or bad or why that's happened, but it just has happened. So you come back in, the game is different. You're playing a different format, and you're sitting down expecting to win regardless of whether you're playing known cedh strategies or not. If you have the competitive mindset, I think that it's appropriate that your friends focus you and make sure that they can win. And if that's the case, and it detracts from your fun as the competitive mindseted person, I don't think that they should feel guilty when trying to beat you. I think that if you're the competitive mindset player and showing up to win, probably your deck is built in a way that facilitates that mindset, and they should feel proud if they beat you, because probably you put a lot of thought into your deck. Probably you practice piloting it at some kind of efficiency level that you're happy with, and that makes you a good player. A better player than a lot, I think. A lot of casual Magic players don't practice. A lot of casual players put cards into their decks because they would be fun, interesting, silly, goofy. If you're thinking, playing, building, executing with the sole intent of winning, again, whether it's casual or more powerful or competitive EDH, if your goal is to win, probably you're going to win more than a lot of people around you that you play with. So if you get focused because you're a good player, even if you haven't played for 10 years, that should be something that your friends take pride in when they beat you. And one of the other points that Martin touches on in his email is he gets the perception, or maybe there's even a very distinct blame game happening. Maybe that's too harsh of a way to put it, but I think a lot of the times when somebody comes back into the game, because it's evolved and because there's so many cards, or whether you're new and there's so many cards, it would be easy to think that, oh, they're taking advantage of my lack of knowledge. They're taking advantage of me not knowing every rules interaction or every ability or every new ability that's been printed since I left the game. And to that, I would have to agree. But, I don't think it's consciously on purpose as a way to angle shoot you. If somebody's taking advantage of a interesting, unique, less played, new to you rules interaction or ability, that's because they know how to work and work it or how it works, and they're interested in the piece of minutia or strategy that rule or ability provides. And if you don't know it because you're new, well, I don't want to say, well, that's on you, but that's what makes you new. That's what makes somebody a new player, is they don't know as much about the game. And there's nothing wrong with that. Furthermore, if you know what an ability is, and this is when it gets a little bit complicated, when you know what an ability is or what the strategy that a deck is using is, and you can recognize that it's powerful and you purposefully go out there and learn it when you come back to the game or when you're learning the game for the first time, you can go out there and learn it, learn how it works, and know the rules interactions and still lose to it or still feel like it's way more powerful or that it's focusing on you or whatever, because you don't know within that strategy or that ability what the most powerful part is or how it works together with the rest of the deck or strategy that it's in. Okay, I'll give you an example. Think of Demonic Tutor, black, 1, sorcery. Search your library for any card. Okay. Known staple, powerful, casual decks, competitive decks. Everybody plays this card. Everybody wants this card in their deck. Tutors are powerful. They represent any card in your deck that you want for 2 mana and a card. Okay, we all know that these are powerful. When I'm new and I first learn Demonic Tutor is a powerful card, I should not let my opponent cast that. Counterspell. Okay, that's great. Counter the Demonic Tutor. What's maybe better is counter the thing that you think they searched for. Or if you have a tutor, maybe Demonic Tutor is a bad example. Maybe you have a tutor that they have to reveal the card. Search your library for a creature, put it into your hand. They reveal, their game-winning combo creature. Counter that creature. That's a better example. Now, what you've done is recognize that the tutor is a powerful card that's going to help them win the game because it represents the second copy of their game-winning creature. They go out and search it. They spend the mana on the tutor, then they spend the mana on the creature, and then you counter it, thereby making them, air quotes, waste their tutor and waste the mana and the card that is the creature that they searched for. In doing that, you're making your opponent waste cards and spend mana, and you're only spending like 1 counterspell's worth of card and mana. In doing it that way, you're achieving more and being a better counter strategy than the new player who just knows that the tutor's good and counters the tutor, right? So it's like coming into the game or learning new portions of the game and recognizing they're good is one thing, but then learning how to actually play the game to kind of a higher degree or a higher skill level is a whole nother thing. So a little bit of a tangent example there. It's about taking advantage of lack of knowledge. And is that happening? And is that a fair thing to do? Of course it is, because I'm the experienced player or whoever is the experienced player, and they're executing at a kind of higher skill level and from a standpoint of having more knowledge. And this happens with like whenever in regular groups that play together all the time where you've got one person that has a very familiar kind of strategy or abilities that they're using, and one player that doesn't, one player that practices more and one player that doesn't, or one player that has kind of cornered how their meta works and another player that maybe hasn't as much. A great example of this in my own meta is when Uncle Brando and Jesse play together. When Brando rags on Jesse on CCO lots, maybe not as much as he used to, but Jesse's famous for having tons of removal in his deck, like spot removal, 10 pieces of spot removal, 6 sweepers, and Brando doesn't like getting his stuff removed so often. But in our meta, and I'm sure in lots of metas, that's an effective way to make sure that you don't die. And throughout the game, you kind of just build up your strategy when it fits in or in between pieces of removal to keep yourself alive. And because Brando's usually the aggressive or the aggro player, he's the one that needs to have his stuff removed by Jesse's removal. So he feels that Jesse targets him. He's the one that's being aggressive. He's the aggro player, famously, and will admit it and likes to do lots of damage. And that's the way that he likes to play. And then having his things removed makes him feel sometimes like he's being targeted because he's always the biggest threat. And somebody, Jesse, has identified that. So is it targeting? Yes. Is it focusing? Yes. Is it for reasons? Absolutely. And the reasons are strictly 100% game related. Take care of the biggest threat or the most aggressive player in this example, and that's going to help you stay alive. And staying alive is how you win games. Now the question is this okay socially to remove everything that somebody's doing? Well, yes, if it follows all of those rules that I just said. If it is just targeting because somebody's less experienced, well, that's a different social issue. And if you're just targeting somebody because they're less experienced, like if I only targeted my buddy Smitty's kid because he's 10, well, that's a different issue. And that's almost like in-game bullying, like getting an easy win because I'm taking advantage of a kid, right? Different issue. And you should feel guilty if you do that. Not because you're targeting a kid, but because you're using that kid or that new player's lack of knowledge and experience specifically against them. Which a little bit sounds like the exact opposite of what I just said. But one is using my experience to take the whole game in and make the proper call. To say that strategy is good, this is the threat. Using my experience to build my deck in a proper way. Using my experience to identify when I think somebody else sees something that I can coax a removal spell out of their hand with, or save a removal spell of my own if I can get them to remove it. That's using my experience to manage my position in the game and politically and socially, whereas targeting a kid because they don't have that experience or that kind of 10,000 foot view like I've developed over my 15 years of playing, if I'm targeting a kid because they don't have that repeatedly because it's air quotes an easy win or stealing candy from a baby type scenario, that's when it becomes not okay. And as a friend group or as a community leader at your LGS, it would behoove you and your community and your friend group to make sure that that kind of thing gets addressed. Now, going back to Martin's email where he talks about his experienced adult friend coming back to the game, knowing how to play Magic but being new at Commander. Are they targeting him or focusing him because he has a lack of experience? Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to wager not, because I don't think that happens very often. The person with the lack of experience in the format generally isn't the biggest threat, even if they are playing the most powerful or competitively minded deck. Usually, the person with the most experience who can make that 10,000 foot assessment of the board and knows how to politic and knows how to not spend mana to get things done in the game, usually that's the person that's the most dangerous. That is usually also the most experienced player, not the player that's new to the game. Now, what we haven't really touched on yet is coming into casual Commander with the competitive mindset and wanting to win, coming from 1v1 formats, or here's one, going from 1v1 formats directly into cEDH, and then backing away from cEDH a little bit to do some more goofy casual stuff. A lot of the times people don't get that when 4 players sit down to play a game of casual Commander and it's not about winning, sometimes things just happen because it's like a checkpoint on somebody's list, or they happen for the lulz, or they happen because they want to do the thing. And from a strategic perspective, that doesn't make sense to some people if they don't have a whole ton of experience in casual Commander. So it could feel like somebody's messing with them. Somebody's trolling me. Like, what am I on candid camera? Like, what's going on? Why is this game going this way? Why did you make that decision? It clearly isn't the best one to make. So then it's wrong. And you're doing it to spite me. And I'm mega guilty of this one. I've done this one a few times. And I remember the last time it happened, it was because a guy cast an Armageddon. I was playing my lands deck, I think, and it doesn't matter because I can play my lands from my graveyard. And I think like he didn't want somebody else to win, so he Armageddoned and blew himself out of the game. And he's playing like an Avacyn deck, right? So Armageddon makes sense in that deck when you have your commander, but he was at like 5 planes and an empty board, and he Armageddons and puts himself back to nothing. And I'm like, why did you do this? This makes no sense. And it was for the lulz, so somebody else couldn't win. Somebody that like ganked him in a previous game or whatever it is. And in that scenario, a little bit, I forgot. Like I went back to this isn't the most efficient or optimal play, so it's wrong. Or if you're sitting down, you should be trying to win, so this is wrong. Your commander has this strategic thing baked into why you would play Armageddon, make all your lands indestructible on Avacyn, so this is wrong. And I forgot all of those things I just spent 20 minutes talking about, where it isn't me that's being targeted. It isn't a meta call that this is in this person's deck because of things I've done. And it isn't because I'm better than this player that he's trying to get me. Like it's he's not better than me and trying to pick on me. It's none of those things. And I forgot all of that because in the moment I felt, oh, I'm getting done dirty here. I'm getting done wrong because I can't do my thing in this 4-player game where everybody's trying to do their thing while trying to stop the opponents from doing their thing. I forgot that this multiplayer, goofy, chaos free-for-all dynamic exists and is common and rampant in the Commander format when you play casual Commander, especially among friends where you know each other's strategies. And for a minute, because my lands got destroyed and I got emotional about it because now I don't get to play the Magic that I wanted to play, I forgot all that. And maybe that happens to you. Maybe that happens to Martin's friend. Maybe he's interested and excited to play the format and do all these things, whether they be competitively mindseted activities or strategies or casual ones. You want to do the thing that you want to do. That's why you bake it into your deck. That's why you think about it and practice it and do all the things. So when your thing gets removed, like Uncle Brando and Jesse, when my lands got destroyed, like in my example, or in Martin's example, when his opponent is getting focused because he's a player with a competitive mindset, you got to remember to go back to that mantra that I talked about, maybe in episode 234, but I know for sure in the past that games are fleeting. And if this is a bad one, move on. And if you repeat have bad games, first look inside and say, hey, is this me? Is this my strategy? Is this my reputation that's causing me to actually get focused? Am I actually getting focused? Am I doing something that's countercultural? Am I just excited to do my thing? And when Commander happens around me, I'm finding it hard to do my thing. Do I need more protection? Do I need this or that from a strategic standpoint, a social standpoint? If you're truly at a loss when you take a hard look in, then talk to your friends, right? Again, I fall back on this just like I fall back on fleeting games. Communication is key. Communication before the game, during the game, after the game, with your friends, when you're not playing Magic. Like, communication is the most important part of Magic. Like, we're all sitting down and talking about Magic, and maybe like Magic is happening, but really we're sitting down and we're sitting next to people, and everybody's different and everybody has their own ideas of what's happening in the universe around them. And Magic brings four people together and they get to communicate for an hour. That's what it's about. That's why it's special. And that's why, you can spend half an hour talking or 2 episodes or 10 episodes talking about just the importance of that. And it's kind of really the thing that differentiates Commander from other formats and Magic the Gathering from other games. It's, I guess it's kind of the reason that things like Dungeons and Dragons and creative storytelling games, role-playing games are as popular as they are in the gaming community, and how that's kind of permeating into regular mainstream culture. And you see that with the increase in popularity of these things, and having, D&D movies be made and having people come in, and then it just reignites these conversations when you have new people coming into the game, new people coming into D&D or Magic or whatever who don't know, and come in and feel like they're being targeted because they're inexperienced, or feel like they're targeted because they're coming in from other games or other formats and wanting to win or be competitive, where things like Commander are social and silly and fun and what have you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's just the cycle that continues to repeat, and why things like Commander ad Populum remain relevant. And I can revisit a topic like this one and share different perspectives on the topic, or slightly provide a different, take on it. Or now that the format's evolved from, what did I say, episode 234, whenever that was, a year and a half ago, and from a different perspective or an evolution of the topic from when Commander ad Populum started, or when the format was taken over by WotC in 2011, or when it was starting to gain popularity in 2009, right? You can revisit these topics because they're cyclical and they ebb and they flow depending on how many people are coming in and what's popular and the direction that WotC's going. And now that cedh is kind of its own thing, and what that's done to the casual sort of metagame. And I think it's fantastic. And again, it comes down to communication and being a good human being, which I've ended a lot of episodes like that. So, I mean, like, it's one of the themes of Commander ad Populum, of course. So I guess that's kind of how I have to end it, right? Communicate, be a good person, and always live, always learn. Like, you're always trying to gain an edge in Magic. You're always trying to get that last card in, or upgrade this, upgrade that, become a better player, blah, blah, blah. Well, part of being a better player is being a better human. So just throwing that out there. And with that, I got to cut it off. I got to get this show out. Thank you for being here. Big thank you to official sponsors, FusionGamingOnline.com, your source for all of your gaming needs, all of your needs that are maybe competitive mindset needs, maybe casual mindset needs. They've got it all. We like working with them. CCO Summer and CCO Perks, still the active promo codes if you want to get a little bit of a discount if you want to shop at Fusion. Great place to go. Great little LGS. Helpful customer service. Nice people. They gave us a tour one time. It was cool. Like working with those guys. If you want to become part of the Patreon supporter group for Commander ad Populum, you can do so at patreon.com/CADPopcast. head on over, a couple bucks a month. There's a couple different tiers. You can get access to the Discord. You can get the direct line to me. That's the easiest way. A little bit of a discount on the altered art cards if you want to commission any of those. Ad-free Commander Ad Populum if you listen through the Patreon feed. All great benefits. And of course, my unending thanks and gratitude and thankfulness for everybody who wants to support the content, because I like making it. I think it's important, and I get approached and told often that it is something that people look forward to every week, or it's helped them understand some portion of Magic strategy, subculture, hit close to home, deep in the feels, like whatever it is. So if you want to be part of bringing that to people, a couple bucks a month goes a long way. And everybody who listens very much tells me that they appreciate it. If you want to get in touch, at CCO Podcast on Twitter, cadpopcast@gmail.com. Hit me up either place, show topics, critiques, criticisms, if you've got stories or anything, how Magic's influenced your life or how your real life has influenced your Magic playing or teaching or development, anything like that, you let me know. I like to feature those on the show, and as evidenced by today's show, I keep them in the tank if I don't use them right away. So send them in. They'll get on the show eventually, and I thank you very much for all of the submissions. And with all of that being said, everybody, I will see you next Wednesday.